Hey everybody, this is Jason Creel and you're watching A Lawn Care Life, and today I want to talk to you about Bermuda grass lawn care. I'm going to talk about mowing, watering, fertilizing, just a lot of different topics regarding caring for Bermuda lawn. So if you look behind me, you'll see a fairly nasty Bermuda lawn. We're going to talk about this, and then we're going to get started talking to you about some of the specifics about how to care for your Bermuda lawn. Let's get started. So this is not exactly the end goal when you're starting your Bermuda lawn care. If you've been following the channel, and I know some of you have and some of you haven't, this yard is about 18 months in the progress. You say, well, it took 18 months to get it to look like this. Well, not necessarily, but basically what happened is we sprayed this yard and scraped it down to the dirt and started over. And last August, we plugged it with Bermuda sod. And we had like a very serious drought during that time, so it didn't all live. A decent amount of it lived. It started to spread, and then winter came. It stopped growing. Overseeded with ryegrass. It looked decent during the winter. Had the greenish yard around because most people just let their yards go dormant, which is probably what I'll do next year. Then I sprayed out the ryegrass and killed it off. And now I've got the Bermuda going, and this video's been shot in mid-May. So with this amount of Bermuda, I don't have much doubt that, you know, within a couple of months I should have pretty much full coverage, at least in this area. So on that note, let's talk about Bermuda and what we do to care for it. I'll say this, I take care of a lot of lawns, a lot of Bermuda lawns, and I don't know that I've ever seen a decent looking Bermuda lawn that was not having some kind of weed control plan on it. And the reason being, it does not choke out weeds very well on its own. Now you may say, well, what if I keep it nice and thick and, you know, do some things to help on that end? Well, it probably helps, but it's just not a great grass for naturally choking out weeds. In the winter time, you'll see Bermuda grass and it goes dormant, and you can see through it down to the dirt if you cut it short. It's just not like super thick when it's in that state. So I think it allows for a lot of weeds to compete with it. It gets eat up with crabgrass, at least in my area, if you do not apply proper treatment. So I would highly recommend, if you want a nice looking Bermuda lawn, to apply pre-emergent or pay somebody to do it for you, you know, early in the year, and then a pre-emergent in the fall. And then of course we're going to talk about fertilizer as well. One of the great things about it and what we did with this is you don't necessarily have to sod it the whole entire yard, because it spreads so quickly. Now in this situation, I have several acres. I probably would have needed about 300 pallets of sod to cover this yard. Well, obviously I'm not going to do that. I don't want to put out 300 pallets of sod. I certainly don't want to pay for 300 pallets of sod. So we just plugged it, and when you plug it, you can reduce the amount of sod you need greatly. I mean, you can go as probably as low as a pallet of sod per acre if you plug it. And they, you know, cut up in plugs and throw it out and water it like crazy, and once it takes root, it does great. So there are seeding options. I just wanted a quality Bermuda. The 419 Bermuda that I was wanting, you can't get as seed. There's some other hybrid Bermudas that you can get as seed that companies like Pennington put out. But anyway, so that's what happened. So on the mowing, so here's what we're doing. I got this grass and wanted to grow, and when it comes to mowing your Bermuda lawn, you got some options. I tell people, you know, you think about it, you can grow Bermuda grass as hay for, you know, and bale it as hay, or you can mow it extremely short and use it as a putting green on a golf course. So it's fairly adaptable. You don't have to, you know, say, well, do I need to cut it at 1 inch or 3 inches or 2.5 inches? You know, it'll adapt to just about whatever you want to do. My strategy is being on an established Bermuda yard is I like to cut it as low as I can get it in the springtime. You know, right before it starts turning green, I like to get rid of that dormant Bermuda. And what that does, and this is what I tell people, if you want your grass to turn green quicker, your Bermuda lawn, a lot of times one of the most practical things you can do is simply start mowing your grass a little bit earlier. So here, I'm in Alabama. The people that get out there and start early March mowing their grass, what it does is it allows that sunlight to get down to the roots and start warming up the the roots to allow the Bermuda to turn green, where if you leave it all shaggy, it's kind of insulating the roots and it's not going to turn green as quickly. So that's one practical thing you can do, is just mow your grass earlier if you want it green. So what I like to do is to mow it short early in the year, you know, like March, and to try to keep it short as long as possible. Now, you may have a preference, you want to keep it longer, and that's fine, but for me, that's what I want to do. But to keep it short, especially when you get in the summer months and it starts growing much faster, you're going to have to mow it pretty regular. I mean, you can't just mow it every 2 weeks and fertilize it and keep it short, because eventually it's going to be growing so fast that you're not going to be able to mow it short without cutting all the green color out of it, or a lot of the green color. So I think you got to ask yourself, how often do you want to cut the grass? Are you willing to cut the grass every 4 days? Then okay, you can probably keep it short at 1 inch or 1.5 inches. If you're not going to cut it that often, then you can still cut it short in the spring, but as the summer goes along, you're going to probably have to start gradually increasing the mowing height to keep from cutting more of the grass blade off than you should. You know, the kind of rule of thumb is you don't cut more than 1/3 of the grass blade off at a time. So if you're cutting it every 2 weeks, you're going to be, you know, you're gonna have to raise the deck to keep from doing that. Now you look at this, it's hard to tell in the video, but I mean, this grass is fairly short, and I think we cut it at 1.75 inches last time. I might cut it at 1.5 inches, I think, which is the lowest setting I believe my mower deck will go. But I'm gonna try to keep it as low as possible, and hopefully it can begin to spread. Sometimes I get asked, you know, should I overseed my Bermuda, you know, like with more Bermuda, or should I put some sod out? You know, you got like bare spots like this. They'll see something like this and they say, oh, should I throw some more seed out? And I tell people all the time, I say, no, I would not do that. One, a lot of people in my area have this same type Bermuda, this 419 Bermuda, and you can't buy it as seed. So you're gonna be mixing different Bermuda seeds in different grass types, which I don't think is ideal. And two, it just spreads so fast that a little hole like this is gonna fill in, no problem. I'm not worried about this at all. Even a lot bigger hole would fill in. So I would just recommend fertilize and water and let it naturally fill in as it's gonna do. If you have like a zoysia lawn, I tell you, know, it's much slower to spread, and you may want to cut in a piece of sod if you're not willing to wait, because it's going to take much longer than Bermuda. Now, sometimes one of the mistakes I see homeowners make is they go buy some Bermuda sod and they stick it under a big oak tree. And I thought, oh man, I wish they would have talked to me first, because Bermuda needs full sun, and it really just does not do well at all in the shade. And if you look at for us in the south, you know, zoysia typically is my best option for shade, or in some areas you might use St. Augustine. Is going to be also have some shade tolerance, but Bermuda is probably the worst option. So it needs sunlight, and if you've got a shady area, you need to, maybe you could put some emerald zoysia in there, which kind of blends in pretty well with the Bermuda, or you just make it a natural area, put pine straw mulch, something like that, plant some azaleas, hydrangeas, things like that, instead of wasting your money throwing some more Bermuda grass. I tell people, you know, the Bermuda, it will let you know where it's gonna grow. And if you've had this yard for years and it's never grown under that tree, well, it's not gonna start this year, okay? So don't go waste your money and throw some more Bermuda sod out there, because it needs a lot of sun. And it's not necessarily that it's competing with that tree for nutrients. Maybe that has some effect. It's usually just as simple as it's not getting enough sunlight. One thing, back to the mowing real quick, if you're trying to keep it short and you don't want to mow it as often, one of the things I do, and I've got a video out this, but about this, something you could search for it on YouTube, something like how to have a golf course lawn or something like that. You can put golf course lawn, lawn care life, and it should come up. But it's a product, it's called Podium is the one I use, but it's a growth regulator. You spray it and it actually makes your grass grow supposedly better roots and grow more laterally and less vertically. And so it allows you to only mow your grass every 2 or 3 weeks and yet keep it nice and tight. So that's something, one option if you want that kind of golf course look and keep it real short without having to mow it every 4 days. I'm going to show you some of the fertilizer that I'm putting on Bermuda yards. And what I'm typically doing for the customers I take care of is we're fertilizing 2 times a year. And the first fertilizer I put out in April or May, and again, this is going to vary depending on where you are, but you see I buy from Harold's. They're a supplier. They don't typically sell to homeowners, but for those of us in the lawn business, That's who makes my fertilizer. So the first blend is, as you can see here, and this is a quick release fertilizer. This is a, let's see, 20-3-5 blend. And so I put this out in April or early May to kind of give it, when the weather starts to warm, there's no reason to put it out when it's cold. The Bermuda's not going to respond. Recently we had got down in the 30s in May, and people were saying, why is my grass not green? And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that we got down in the 30s. It just does not like cold weather. But you put this out, and of course, fertilizer needs water, but to help it start turning green, give it that nitrogen. And then and I'm using this at a fairly light rate. A bag covers about 13,000 square feet. And then I come and put out this slow release polyon. So let me grab a little bit of this. And you can see here, the white pellets are quick release fertilizer. The green is a slow release, and they last for about 4 months. This is the polyon technology, so it breaks down over time. And this is a 3806 blend, so 38% nitrogen. We talked about this before, the way I was taught. If you want to know how much nitrogen is in your bag, there it is upside down, 3806. And they're 50-pound bags, so how much nitrogen is in that bag? You just take that first number and divide by 2. So there's 19 pounds of nitrogen in this, because it's 38% nitrogen in a 50-pound bag. You do the math, it's 19 pounds of nitrogen in this bag. Well, so what are we trying to put out on our Bermuda lawns? Well, I'm going for around 2.2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. So roughly a bag like this covers about 9,500 square feet. Now, Bermuda can tolerate more nitrogen than that. If you want it to be super green and grow faster, you can put more fertilizer on it. You don't have to use the slow release. You can use a quick release and put it out every 4 or 5 weeks or whatever you decide to do. But for me, it's just easier to use this slow release, put it out and let it feed the lawn for 4 months. Because a lot of times what happens is, when you put your nitrogen fertilizer out, you put a lot on there, the grass can only use so much of it, and so a lot of it ends up being wasted. Well, with the slow release, it feeds the lawn at a rate that the grass can actually use it. Now, when it comes to watering your Bermuda lawns, I tell people to water less often, and this again, the way I was taught to do it, you water less often, but you water for longer periods of time. So 2 of my customers this week, it's getting May, we had a little dry spell hit. 2 of them, I helped them program their irrigation system. Those irrigation boxes can be a little confusing if you've never worked with them. And you go in there, sometimes you see people and they've got it set 7 days a week for 5 minutes per zone, and that's really not ideal. So what we try to do is, I tell them, I said, let's set it for 1 day a week, 30 minutes per zone, and give it a good soaking. Try to get that water down further into the root system, because honestly, there's some problems that can be caused when you're watering every day and you're just keeping it damp. One, you go in those yards and you start walking around on the yard and it hadn't rained in 3 weeks, and it's literally just squishing under your feet. Like, these people are watering way too much, and that can lead to some weed problems, and also makes you more at risk for fungus. So I would not recommend that. But if you water 30 minutes per zone once a week, and let's say, I tell them, I say, hey, if it gets to be July and it's 100 degrees and it ain't rained for a month, then go to twice a week. But if you'll water once a week and we get some rain every now and then, I say, I really think you're gonna be fine. There's no reason to just keep running the thing all the time just so you can see it run. And on that note, I mean, Bermuda grass is extremely drought tolerant. So even if it turns brown, it's most likely not dead. I mean, it's hard to kill when you want to kill it. So it will handle drought. So I mean, but you don't want to let it turn brown. If it starts having some discoloration, put the water to it. Sometimes if you got one area in your yard that's turning brown, there may be an issue going on in that particular area. Sometimes it's just very poor soil. You take a shovel and stick it in the ground, and you won't go very far if you hit rock or something. So you may just have very little topsoil, and which means shallow roots, which means that's probably the first area to dry out when it gets hot. We had a drought about 3.5 years ago that was pretty serious, and there was a lady, and you could see almost like a straight line where her grass turned brown. Well, it turns out that there was cement under that line, and it poured in a straight line, and it was very shallow, and of course that part really took a beating, where the part that didn't have cement, had deeper roots, survived the drought even with little water. So here's a couple of the products I mentioned in the video. This is the pre-emergent that I use in the spring, and you can use it in the fall too. I use Spectacle in the fall, but it helps with pull. But I use this Resolute. It's the active ingredient is prodiamine. Sorry about the shadows here. But anyway, it works great as far as preventing your crabgrass. Get it down before the crabgrass germinates here. It's better to be early than late on your pre-emergent, so we try to get it out, before early March here in Alabama, and then, or at least in my area. And then Podium, this is the growth regulator I was talking about. You spray it on the lawn. It's a little bit, expensive. I think it's $200 something for this jug, but it goes a long way, and it really reduces the amount of vertical growth and can actually give you a thicker, more dense looking turf. So I really like Podium, and if you don't want to mow so often, this is one option for you. I'll put links to these in the description of the video. Hey, I'm sure I didn't cover everything. I might even say some stuff that's incorrect, and it's not, certainly not everything is true for everybody in every situation. If you're in a different area, some of the time frames may be different. You may get more rain where you are, less rain. I mean, there's other products out there that you can use to have a great looking lawn. So hey, we don't all have to agree, but hopefully this video has been helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, I would encourage you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That will let you know when I create new content. I've got over 500 videos, so I'd encourage you to check them out. If you're in the lawn care business, go to lawncarelife.com. There's some resources available for you there. I'm Jason Creel. Appreciate you watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.